In the world of cybersecurity, it often feels like defenders are playing an endless game of whack-a-mole, always fighting to keep up. Hackers just need to find one tiny crack to get in. So today, we're talking about a secret weapon in that fight, a technology called SIEM, which is basically the digital watchtower for our networks. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the huge security challenge we're facing today, and this problem of just drowning in data. Then, we'll see how SIEM steps in to be the central hub for all of it. After that, we'll pop the hood and see how it works. And finally, we'll take a peek at what's next. I want you to imagine something for a second. Picture a huge building with hundreds of security guards. Now, what if every single one of them was shouting at you at the same time about something they saw? It would be total chaos, right? Well, that's pretty much the core challenge in cybersecurity today. Just a massive, overwhelming amount of noise. So let's dive into that. Let's really look at what a typical corporate network, our digital battlefield, actually looks like on a day-to-day basis. Think about all the pieces involved. You've got firewalls, servers, antivirus software, even our own PCs and laptops. The key thing here is that every single one of these components is a chatterbox. They're all constantly generating logs and data about everything they do, every second of every day. So, all that data from all those sources, well, it leads to a very real and very serious problem for the humans who are actually trying to protect these networks. Honestly, they get completely buried. This quote from IBM Technology nails it. Analysts are dealing with literally thousands of alerts every single day from all these different disconnected tools. There's even a name for it, alert fatigue, and it is a major, major cause of burnout in the industry. And you know who loves all this chaos? The attackers. They know that a flood of information is the perfect cover. It makes it so much easier for them to find that one little blind spot, that one gap that lets them slip right through completely unnoticed. So how in the world do you solve this problem of having way too much information? Well, this is exactly where we need something to step in and bring a little bit of control to all that chaos. And that's where SIEM comes in. It stands for Security Information and Event Management. But what does that really mean? Well, think of it as a central command center. Its whole job is to gather up all that security noise from every single source and actually make sense of it all. One of our sources had a great way of putting it. Just think of it as a magical detective robot for your network. It's kind of like a superhero that's programmed to watch everything that's happening and only sound the alarm when something is genuinely wrong. And that really gets to its main goal, creating what's called a high-fidelity alert. Like in a spy movie where the bad guys create a big distraction out front, but the real break-in is happening at a side door. A SIEM is designed to ignore that loud, flashy distraction and tell you, hey, the real threat is over here. So how does a SIEM system actually pull this off? Let's take a look under the hood at the core mechanics of how this digital detective really works. The whole thing is basically a funnel. First, it collects all the logs and data from everywhere. Next, it has to process all that information, which means putting it into a standard format so you can compare apples to apples. Then the real magic happens. It analyzes everything, connecting the dots to find suspicious patterns. And finally, when it finds something really bad, it sends an alert to the analysts. So let's look at an example. Let's say the SIEM sees 25 failed login attempts over 25 minutes. Okay, that's a little suspicious, but it's probably low priority. It could just be someone who had way too little coffee and forgot their password. But what if the SIEM sees 130 failed login attempts in just 5 minutes? Whoa, now the context has completely changed. The system instantly recognizes this pattern as a probable brute force attack and fires off a high-priority alert for someone to look at right now. So, a SIEM is obviously an incredibly powerful tool, right? But technology never stands still. So let's take a look at where it's all going and how it's evolving. So let's quickly recap the big wins here. A good SIEM gives you super fast threat identification, a single pane of glass to see everything at once, all your data in one place for investigations, and it even helps with all those complex compliance reports. But, and this is a really big but, it's not a magic bullet. The sources are very clear that SIEMs have a high upfront cost, can take 90 days or even longer to set up, and you need a team of real experts to run them. Why? Because getting data from dozens of different systems, each with its own weird format, is incredibly complex. And if you mess it up, you risk missing the very threats you bought it to find. These challenges, plus the need to respond even faster, have really pushed the industry to the next step in this evolution, a technology called SOAR.
So here's the difference in a nutshell. SIEM is all about identifying and telling you about a threat. SOAR, which stands for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response, is about doing something about it. It can automatically block an IP address or delete a phishing email without a human ever having to click a button.
What's really interesting is that we're seeing these two worlds merge. Modern SIEMs are starting to include SOAR features, using AI and automation to create these super smart systems that can both detect a problem and then immediately respond to it.
And that leaves us with one final big question about where all of this is headed. As the bad guys get faster and smarter, is it really enough anymore to just see the threat and get an alert? Or is the future of cybersecurity a world where our systems have to respond automatically in real time?